Many new energy vehicle users in Shanghai have noticed a surge in the price of charging stations. The cost at some office building charging stations has already increased to 2 yuan. Therefore, charging a 55 kilowatt electric vehicle once roughly costs around 100 yuan. The lady who captured this on video believes that the electric vehicles initially attracted customers with the advantage of cheaper charging compared to gasoline. However, the prices are gradually increasing, a typical commercial practice. She pointed out that charging stations require significant upfront investment, so it's understandable that the business's ultimate goal is profit. She predicts that charging prices will continue to rise, further inflating the cost of charging electric vehicles.
Imagine one day the cost of running an electric car is just as much as a gasoline car. Would you still buy an electric one? Recently, it seems as if there's been a secret meeting among many charging stations in Jingzhou because their prices skyrocketed overnight. According to a local rideshare driver, a local charging station used to charge 0.41 yuan per kilowatt hour from midnight to 7 a.m. After the price hike, the cost doubled to 0.73 yuan. Same place, same time, but double the cost. It makes you wonder if this has something to do with the summer peak electricity usage.
Recently, a rising trend in the charging cost at commercial charging stations for new energy vehicles has been observed in various parts of mainland China. According to mainland media reports, since July, many new energy vehicle owners in Zhengzhou have claimed that nearly all brand new energy charging stations in the city have increased their prices. Compared to the cheapest late-night off-peak charging prices, the cost of charging after the price hike is almost double. Taxi drivers in Zhengzhou lamented their hardship, having to spend an additional 15 to 16 yuan per day, which results in an extra expenditure of 400 to 500 yuan per month. Even the late-night price increase is quite frustrating. Commercial charging stations quietly raising prices is not unique to Zhengzhou. The cost of charging stations in Shanghai has also seen a staggering surge. Netizens from Shanghai have revealed that the price of charging stations has increased particularly quickly recently. The selling price at the same location and during the same period has skyrocketed from the previous 1.15 yuan to 2.15 yuan, an increase of as much as 87%. Data also shows that the increase in Shanghai's electric vehicle charging prices even reached 200% at one point. An owner of a new energy vehicle in Qingdao commented, "Since June 1st, I noticed that the public charging station I usually visit has raised its price." Looking at various platforms, on average, each charging station has increased its price by 0.2 yuan per kilowatt hour. For a full charge of 70 kilowatt hours, this vehicle owner found that the cost of each charge has increased by more than 10 yuan. A full charge can provide 500 kilometers of driving range, sufficient for 2 weeks of daily commuting. It's noteworthy that the rise in charging prices is not limited to these 3 cities. So far, public charging stations in regions such as Beijing, Zhejiang, Guangdong, and Chongqing have all seen price hikes. If this continues, the widespread increase in charging costs will gradually force people to reconsider the original intention of purchasing new energy electric vehicles. The coordinated price increases across different cities and brands have sparked heated discussions among netizens. Some are puzzled as to why the costs of charging stations has suddenly skyrocketed, while others question the initial government encouragement to buy electric vehicles, feeling that consumers are now being exploited. The skyrocketing cost of charging stations is actually the result of several factors combined. Some analysts believe that one significant reason for the surge in charging costs is the unreasonable distribution of charging facilities and structural oversupplies, leading to some charging stations being idle while some areas face severe shortages, resulting in lengthy waiting times for charging. Data from the Chinese Ministry of Public Security shows that from 2017 to 2022, China's new energy vehicle stock increased from 1.7 million to 13.1 million units. The ratio of vehicles to charging stations decreased from 3.9 to 1 to 2.5 to 1, meaning there was on average one charging station for every 2.51 electric vehicles. Public data reveals that as of September 2022, the total number of charging infrastructures in China amounted to 4.5 million, an increase of 101.9% year-on-year. However, with the surge in the number of charging stations, the daily utilization rate is low, the rate of slow charging is high, and zombie stations are everywhere throughout the city's streets. China Global Television Network reported on May 26 that an interviewee said, "Right in the center of Beijing, there are a pair of electric vehicle charging stations owned by the state-controlled State Grid Corporation on the sidewalk. But they are just wrapped in plastic. No one driving an electric vehicle can charge there." A survey of 32 cities by the China Urban Planning and Design Institute showed that the average time utilization rate of charging stations in 10 cities was less than 50%. In Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, China's wealthiest cities, the average time utilization rate of charging stations was less than 10%, far below the overall average. According to a study by Harvard University's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, public charging stations for new energy vehicles need a utilization rate of 20% to be commercially viable. This suggests that the vast majority of charging stations in China are operating at a loss, with many relying on state subsidies to maintain their operations. Therefore, a decrease in these charging subsidies could lead to an increase in charging fees. Dai Zhiyan, deputy researcher at the Technology Policy Assessment Research Center of Taiwan's Zhonghua Institution for Economic Research, stated that the development of electric vehicle charging stations in China started relatively early. At the time, many electromechanical companies were supported by government subsidy policies, which in turn brought about a large number of jobs. Although the usage rate was low, since it was the government that footed the bill, the low usage rate wasn't their concern. The rise in charging costs is also related to changes in electricity pricing rules. According to a notice previously issued by China's National Development and Reform Commission, China began implementing a new electricity pricing scheme from June 1st this year. In the new pricing scheme, the cost of electricity for users is gradually categorized into residential life, agricultural production, and industrial and commercial use, each presented in an ascending order. Due to significant differences in natural conditions in different regions, the development of electric vehicles is varied. This leads to differences in charging costs when comparing cities. Since the electricity needed for public charging stations is classified as industrial and commercial use, the cost of charging will inevitably increase across the country. Another perspective suggests that the rise in charging station prices is due to power supply pressure. In recent years, extreme weather events have become frequent, leading to high electricity consumption in summer, a widening gap between peak and off-peak power demand, and a sharp increase in power balancing pressure. The explosive growth of electric vehicles further exacerbates the load on the power grid. To guide car owners towards off-peak, orderly charging, some regions have expanded the price difference between peak and off-peak electricity. If extreme climate periods extend in the future, breaking new highs in electricity consumption each year could lead to power supply pressure. It will be a tremendous challenge to balance the power during peak periods and maintain the system's secure, stable operation. In fact, power supply pressure will not only affect the price of charging but also lead to situations where electric vehicles cannot be charged. In 2022, several provinces in China experienced power shortages, hence the electric vehicles were unable to charge. Due to extreme high temperatures, there was tension between electricity supply and demand in Sichuan, forcing ride-hailing drivers to queue overnight for charging. According to mainland media reports, one driver, Zhang Wei, was in the queue from around 9 p.m. until about 6 a.m. the next day before he could charge. Zhang Wei revealed that he initially didn't know that Chengdu was controlling the power supply to public charging stations. As usual, he queued for charging at 5 a.m., but by 8 a.m. he was still not able to charge as the power to the charging stations had been cut off. Left with no choice and with his vehicle's battery almost depleted, he had to park at the charging station and continue queuing, effectively going on strike for a day. After this, Zhang Wei spent almost every day driving during the day and staying up all night queuing for charging. He recalls once when there were more than 60 vehicles in line at a public charging station, stretching almost a kilometer. The charging station initially had 36 charging piles, but due to power restrictions, only half were operational. The typical charging time for a car is over an hour, so it would take 4 to 5 hours for all queued vehicles to fully charge. Although problems with charging electric vehicles still exist in China, the Chinese government continues to encourage the public to buy new energy electric vehicles to stimulate the economy.
Recently, the release of new policy documents encouraging the scrapping and replacement of old vehicles has sparked quite the debate. The government seems to be pulling out all the stops to boost sales of new energy electric vehicles. The encouragement for the concentrated scrapping of vehicles meeting the third and fourth phase of the National Motor Vehicle Emission Standards is indeed quite a move.
The woman filming the video believes the government's request is unreasonable. She explains that, logically, cars are private property. If everyone believed that new energy vehicles are good, they would voluntarily switch. If manufacturers that meet the third or fourth stage of motor vehicle pollutant emission standards collectively recycle, it would be more reasonable to give a fair price to switch to new energy vehicles. That way, people would be motivated to switch. The woman also revealed that this demonstrates that China has overproduced vehicles and the inventory is too large. The Chinese public does not have the desire to buy, and even if they do not have the money. If the incentives are increased and the prices are lowered to a range that the public can afford, naturally there would be buyers. In addition to encouraging the Chinese public to scrap gasoline vehicles and switch to electric ones, the Chinese government announced on June 21st that it would extend the purchase tax exemption for new energy vehicles. This incentive, originally set to expire this year, will now continue until the end of 2027. Chinese officials estimate that the total amount of exemptions from 2024 to 2027 will reach 520 billion yuan, approximately 72.4 billion USD. However, analysts point out that while the Chinese government subsidizes electric vehicles, it fails to address the fundamental issue of charging and thus cannot encourage Chinese consumers to purchase more electric vehicles. Craig Zeng, the CFO of AutoHome, a Chinese car information and shopping website, told CNBC that charging electric cars in China is still, quote, quite troublesome. Zeng pointed out that residential planning in China does not include many private parking spaces, and the number of charging piles that can be installed in communities is also limited. In Chinese cities, most people live in apartment buildings. Some apartment buildings have underground parking garages, but many people park their cars around the buildings. The reason is that in Beijing, renting a parking space without a charging station costs over 100 USD per month. Zeng noted that after many people buy cars, the issue of charging becomes increasingly prominent. American economist Davy J. Wong believes that cars and real estate are the two major consumer goods in China. The Chinese government is trying to stimulate consumption by encouraging people to buy new energy vehicles, hoping to squeeze out the remaining consumer capacity of the public. Wong analyzed that China's so-called new energy vehicles are a gimmick by the Chinese government to leapfrog with the concept of new energy. It hopes to occupy the global market in the automotive industry, so the Chinese government is developing it as a key project and making arrangements and preparations for overseas expansion. However, Western countries pay more attention to safety and privacy, so it's not easy for China's new energy vehicles to break into international markets. Since Tesla launched its first electric car, the Tesla Roadster, the Chinese government has decided to fully support this industry in an attempt to prove that China's market is the largest and fastest growing in the world. It began to provide industry subsidies. The Chinese government at all levels not only directly subsidizes new energy vehicle manufacturers, but also allows workplaces and individuals who purchase new energy vehicles to receive purchase tax exemptions. In large cities with restrictions on car purchases and usage, new energy vehicles become the exception. The subsidy amount that the Chinese government provides for new energy vehicles is sometimes even higher than the vehicle sale price, leading to a plethora of fraudulent subsidy practices. Not only smaller car companies, but many renowned leading automakers have been implicated in fraudulent activities related to subsidies. In order to secure higher subsidy amounts, these manufacturers have manipulated key parameters like the electric vehicle's range and battery capacity. This deceptive practice has also left consumers in a lurch. Encouraged by the Chinese government's vigorous support, Chinese new energy vehicle companies rushed to join the fray. However, with the gradual withdrawal of the government's subsidy policies, a vast majority of new energy vehicle brands have withered away. According to statistics, the number of Chinese new energy car companies exceeded 487 in 2018. However, just 5 years later, in 2023, only a little over 40 such companies remain operational. This suggests that over 400 new energy companies vanished, with over 90% of the companies going bankrupt. Even those capable of manufacturing vehicles are experiencing losses. Take NIO, Li Auto, and XPeng as examples. In 2022, NIO's net loss was 14.6 billion yuan, with a loss margin of 29.6%. Its losses were at a record high, with an average daily loss of 40 million yuan. Li Auto's net loss in 2022 was 2 billion yuan, with a loss margin of 4.5%. While XPeng is currently one of the best performing companies in terms of sales among the three, it is still operating at a loss. In 2022, its net loss was 9.1 billion yuan, with a loss margin of 34%. Analysts believe that the development of new energy vehicles is incredibly capital intensive. In the past, many businesses were developed extensively due to the ability of government subsidies. However, some companies may not survive in the future. They predict a survival of the fittest scenario in the absence of subsidies and challenging market conditions. He Xiaopeng, chairman and CEO of XPeng, made a shocking statement at a technical architecture conference in April this year. Quote, "The automotive industry's elimination game has just begun. Only 8 mainstream car companies will survive in China over the next decade." Meng Jun, a private entrepreneur from China based in the US, revealed that the new energy vehicles are another bubble akin to real estate in China. Yet it's even worse off because the vast majority of China's new energy vehicle companies are involved in subsidy fraud. So, as the bubble bursts on the boom of new energy vehicle manufacturing, how many of these Chinese new energy vehicle companies will survive? And what recourse is available for consumers who have purchased new energy vehicles from companies that have since collapsed?